Brian, and ask Sean Brady, who's CEO at Cloud Assist, and going to chat to us about the road from the coalface to 27,001.
Exactly. Good afternoon. I'm just conscious I'm the last speaker, and so I'm standing between you and going home. So I have resorted to a few cartoons, including one Dilbert, so you're forewarned. But I'm going to share with you some experience that we have done at the coalface, bringing our clients to ISO 27001. So Cloud Assist is a Microsoft certified cloud partner. CDP, there's a whole lot of acronyms that we have achieved over the years. What we have done, obviously, is focus with Microsoft in helping people to achieve ISO 27001. And it was Mark from Mason Hayes Curran actually referred to both Azure and Office 365 have achieved that certification. So there we go. Now, coalface. So this is the experiences that we've seen over the last few years. So if you feel a bit like this guy, and you're at the coalface, and you're obviously worse, that the only thing you have between you and the rock falling on top of you is a little piece of wood. So this is you, and you're the owner of the ISMS, but you want to be like this, right? So this is how we're going to talk to you, how cloud can do that. But cloud obviously has its own issues, so there's pros and cons. So I'm going to talk about the four Ps, which is under products, people, process, and planning. And you saw in my title, planning had a bigger font, and there's a reason for that. So let's talk about products. And cloud products, services, and obviously comes with mobile devices. And I think the thing that you need to know about cloud, obviously a lot of people here would appreciate, it's a moving target. I spoke with Microsoft only recently at a cloud event, and they said that the Office 365 had gone through 150 new features in the last 12 months. Now, that's not bug fixes. These are features, new things that could be good or could be bad for your organization. So it's a moving target. There's also obviously the issue of it being evergreen, which is a good thing, right? So it's always evolving, but it's always changing. So that's what we want to say to people, that it's not just about knowing what you've done last year. You need to keep reviewing your processes. Now, there is this new thing that we're seeing more and more of, is shadow IT, right? And I love that picture with the guy with that thing on top of his head. So sometimes people don't know what is going on in their own organizations. They may have very, very set structures and processes and systems, but what's happened is with the cloud, your employees can go off and buy systems that are not approved and run and circumvent some of your systems because it may be easier for them to do that. But that, again, it creates huge exposure to risk. And obviously, that's what Cloud Assist does, to help to identify that shadow IT. So when you're looking at the planning phase, that you know exactly what your users are using. So what is the most challenging issue that we're seeing at the moment? And what we're seeing is BYOD, bring your own device. And a lot of people say, well, that is the ultimate question. Do you allow your users to bring their own devices and use them in your organization? And most organizations that I speak to, the bigger ones especially, say, oh, no, we actually have all that covered. We give our employees laptops and mobile phones, so we don't have a problem. Problem is, unless you've locked down your MDM, you will have a problem, because someone can literally then use their own personal device to access information and keep, obviously, under the radar and back into shadow IT. And the big problem that we're seeing with mobile devices is mobility. Users can be outside of your network, outside of your security, and be operating without the level of security that people had traditionally with their infrastructure. And so, but the reality is, mobility is the new norm. And these are some statistics here showing you that this is an IDC report showing you what's basically happening in this space. So that challenge has to be covered in your ISO 27001 risk assessment. And of course, people talk about passwords, and we saw the Target example. That was, again, I can imagine had strong passwords, but this is, and here's my Dilbert cartoon. Strong passwords isn't the solution for mobile security. So you, again, must look at a strong MDM, mobile device management solution, and it should have at least these three aspects where you have controlled access or conditional access, device control, so the ISIMS owner can actually control that, and selective wipe. So I'll just talk about conditional access for a second. So conditional access is basically, and this is Office 365 now, you basically only devices that you allow and have been verified and enrolled with your system can access the data. It's a very, very important thing. Now, Office 365 comes with a degree of MDM, but there is a thing called EMS, Enterprise Mobility Suite. But often the case, even the basic MDM isn't switched on. So we go into clients doing assessment. I know Brian is nodding his head. We go in, and even though it's there, paid for, it's not switched on. So again, I would always ask you to go back and look at how your device is being controlled, but also, are they healthy? A healthy mobile device is very important. And that's what, again, a good, strong MDM solution will always make sure that you can conditionally allow the right devices being used by your users. So a jailbroke iPhone isn't something you want your users to be using. So, and you can do that with MDM. You can actually stop, it will interrogate and say, no, you're not a healthy device, I'm not letting you on the system. So, and then selectively wipe. I think it was it was Andy said earlier about people leaving the organization with data. You've got to have that control. You've got to have the ability to, if a device is stolen or lost, that you have the ability to wipe it, because under data protection, section 6, you will have to inform the data protection commissioner if you haven't done so. And again, encryption is great and it's important to have encryption, but you also need to be able to demonstrate you can selectively wipe a device if it's lost. And unfortunately, they get lost, right? Now, there has been a lot of talk about cyber threats, and I think it's great, the insights today over the last few hours, the last speakers. But here's the thing, there is 18,000 servers in Ireland which are still 2003, which is end of life for the last year, maybe more now, year and a half. That's a huge threat, right in the middle of your system. So again, you have to go back to, just because it's still running doesn't mean it's actually a good thing. And of course, the big problem, and it's been mentioned many, many times, is people. But it's actually more than that. It's people behavior that I want to talk about. Because you can put in the best systems, the best processes, the best policies, but unfortunately, people adopt these behavioral changes differently. And again, this is the standard Roger innovation theory, where again, you'll have the innovators, the guy who wants to do it straight off, he's enthusiastic, the innovator, as it's called, the early adopters. You will see that in enterprises where even though the systems are there, they're still not being adopted. Now, again, attachments is one of the biggest problems for viruses. And what we try to do with Office 365 is move people away from attachments. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And we have a company called Redpen that we use for that. Now, here's my joke, and I don't want no disrespect to the employee, but I think that really sums up a lot of the issues that we've seen with human error. Dave, in the corner, will beat any system because he can circumvent it, he can make an error, and with Dave plus this thing, he's a force to be reckoned with. And I think I was at a collaboration conference, and I was asked to speak at it, and they had given out little gift bags. And what was in the gift bag? A USB stick. And I was saying, come on, guys, The only reason I use USB sticks now is just if I have to bring a presentation to where I'm speaking. That's the only time a USB stick. And again, that's what I would recommend, that you have a policy that USB sticks are eliminated. But here's the thing, it's not about Dave being not on the ball. We have a thing in IT now, it's called assimilation capacity. I don't know if anyone's heard this, or it's also called cognitive load theory. It's also been called disengaged brain syndrome. It is actually a reality that we are in a very complex world now. Lots of things are happening, lots of plates are spinning, and actually that's not me spinning a plate, but we have in our heads apparently 7 to 10 plates that we can spin. And if we get 11, 12, 13, what happens is we get disengaged brain syndrome. So users will actually not pick up the new processes and allow things to happen that they shouldn't have allowed. So try and make your systems, the people who are meant to be doing, make sure they're not being overloaded, because that will give you a problem. Because when you get this situation, you get bigger problems. Now, I'm the second person on the bottom there. That's me. So, but that's what I'm saying. There is a whole lot of things going on at the same time. You must look at that behavior and keep asking yourself the question, are we overloading the people that we're relying on? So, user behavior. So, what we try to do is, with Red Pen, we look at user behavior, what's going on. And of course, we can do this. This is one of the great advantages of having cloud. You can see things with big data and analysis that we wouldn't have seen before. So, we can actually analyze user behavior to see if they're using attachments when they should be using SharePoint for links and whatever. We can also see how they're operating online, and we can help nudging them towards compliance, all right? And there's a thing called false consensus. I don't know if anyone's heard this concept. People see a new system and they say, this is just a new fad. We're not going to get, it's just something C-level management have put in. Just ignore it. Keep doing what you're doing. What you need to do is break that false consensus that this system is in place and it's there for a reason, and show the consequence of not complying to it. So, but we also do a thing, I don't know if you saw my stand outside, we have a thing called Just Social, and it's a non-profit initiative. We help charities, and I think charities they have the hardest time when it comes to this space, and I think this is why we set up this non-profit to help them. There's a lot of charities who contain a lot of PII, personal identifiable information on their clients, and they would be in serious reputation damage if information got out. So we set up Just Social, won an award at Web Summit, and actually Office 365 is available for nonprofits. So if you know any nonprofit out there, tell them it's out there, it's available, it's a great product, it will help them towards this compliance. Now, as well as that, for my good deed, I was chosen as the e-car ambassador last year. And why was I chosen? Because I said I could work anywhere. That mobility sometimes can be good, right? So you get electric cars given to you. But it allowed me also to analyze the behavioral change that we needed as an organization to adopt a new way of doing things. And it took me a while, again, to take on an electric car and drive around the country, which is fantastic. But so behavioral change, even though it seems easy to you, and it seems electric cars seem easy to me, other people freak out with the idea of this range anxiety. So for me, it was a wonder. It was a toy. Others, it's a harder. So on to process. Now, I think it was Chris from Aircom mentioned that process was the heart of the organization now for him, for his ISO 27001. And I think that's very important. And we'll talk about how processes can be automated to help with this process. And of course, again, here's another joke. So it says security is not a joke at the bottom for some reason. But because security, it takes a very, very sophisticated approach to a layered protection for the organization. So it's not just one silver bullet that will fix everything. You have to look at your devices, your applications, your files, your identity. And I think these things, you must work with a partner, but also work with other experts to make sure that all aspects are covered. But here's one thing I've learned: process ownership. If you have defined your process in ISO 27001, it's great for doing that. Make sure there is process ownership. And process ownership is a great thing where you can actually, with cloud and with Office 365 and other add-ons such as DocuSign, you can actually automate a lot of the processes that people should be going through and make sure that they're signing off on things, where before you'd have to print out and paper-based signatures. DocuSign allows us to actually embed processes into the organization and make it more effective. So, and finally, we're talking about planning. And of course, planning for us is all about prevention, right? And so again, we go through a standard process like everyone else, and we look at developing a plan. We also have different solution sets as well here, which obviously can be very basic, all the way up to the full bespoke solution. But this is one thing, hopefully you'll learn from this, and I was talking to a few people here today. Most people may have in this room an EA, an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. Within that, you have what's called software assurance planning services. And obviously, partners like us, CDP partners, we are actually given up to 15 days to work with you. Microsoft pay us to help you plan for a move to the cloud to make sure it's ISO 27000 compliant. So that's a really important thing to go away and check. Is your EA, are you eligible? And get someone to help you plan your system. So our model is of mobility, collaboration, process automation for value, and that goes back to product, people, process, and planning. And of course, what planning is all about is about identifying risks. And these risks, as I say with cloud, will always be changing. So you need to look at this as a continuous process. And of course, we work with a number of partners. We have actually a whole ecosystem of partners. Sure Datum for SAM, which is software asset management. HR Locker, which is for your HR files and making sure that their processes and policies are in place. And of course, Redpen for behavior and DocuSign for the thing. And that allows us to get more out of Office 365 for our clients and make sure that things like MDM are switched on. But here's my two final tips for the day. Think of the gym like think of the cloud like the gym. We all sign up to the gym, right? And we don't get there as often as we should. But it's what effort you put into these systems with the results you'll get. But it's getting your users using your services. That's the key. So if you have an IT company, a reseller company trying to sell you more gym equipment and your users aren't using it, what's the point? So again, you think of us, I suppose, Cloud Assist, we're more like an assistant, a fitness instructor, if you wish. We don't wear T-shirts and tracksuits, but we do like to look at assisting users and analyzing their behavior to show how they can conform better to the policies. So again, if someone is looking to sell you more equipment without getting adoption, then you have, obviously, again, just a very big empty gym. So I'm going to leave you with this final image, right? And I think it was mentioned a few times. I think Mason Hayes Curran mentioned due diligence. And this is the point I want to leave you with. I was under the impression. When I hear them 5 words, I was under the impression, when something has gone wrong. Now, why is that guy up there? I put that phrase into Google and Bing images, and he came up twice. So I said, I have to put it in. So I have no idea why he's associated with that, but hopefully that will stick in your mind. Do your due diligence. Don't assume that you actually, what you've been told by a sales guy is correct, and also make sure you're checking with your legal people and do your testing. As Brian mentioned, go home and check your backups. One of the most important things we've seen where, you can't assume you won't be hacked, you will be hacked. Make sure your backups are there to do that. So thank you very much, and I hope that was useful.